tonight was the annual thing where Craig Leopold, the owner of the Minnesota Wild, kind of held court with the local media. A tradition he's done every year, basically, and come up to the suite and watch the first period and then do an interview afterwards at intermission. Just kind of a casual thing, but kind of a state of the team or how he's feeling. He didn't do a ton of interviews during the year, so it was kind of his way to kind of get a feel for what he's thinking, right? And
nice.
This year, a hot topic for a lot of different things is Kirill Kaprizov, who could be signed next summer to extension. The Wild hope, of course, and Wild fans hope. But obviously, there's some uncertainty there because he has to want to, commit early. He has to want to sign, and I think the key part of that rhetoric tonight from Leopold is like he said, no one's going to offer more money than we will. No one's going to offer probably more term than the Wild can. But his thing is like Kaprizov wants to win first and foremost, right? And so I think, Kirill has to see from what happens this year and the prospects coming up. And he's 27 now, be 29 by the time extension starts. Like, if you want to give away 7 more years of your rest of your career, like you got to know that there's something special you're playing for. Like some of his best moments were gold medal and, playing internationally and having that chance. So, I think as like any owner would be is hopeful and optimistic of keeping the best player in franchise history. But even he's probably can't, predict or promise that that's going to happen. But I think that kind of sets the tone for the season. And, what are reasonable expectations for this team? What are they? Do you think, like, obviously playoffs is first and foremost, so the division got better, but what would be disappointing for a Wild fan, let's say, this season?
Ooh, that is the $1 million question. Or if you're Boston, the $64 million question. You know what? It definitely comes with circumstances, right? Like if this is a healthy roster, not making the playoffs is unacceptable, I think, for the fan base. If we have players go down, I think the curve continues to adjust. And I think that July 1st date is really what will dictate whether this was an acceptable season for the fans or not. If it's good enough for Kaprizov, I think the majority of fans are going to get on board and say, what? Cool, we're good. But if we get to, gosh, I don't even know. Where do I set the mark? Do we call it, if we're out celebrating 4th of July and we don't have either a contract in place or like clear reporting coming from the likes of you and Russo saying like, yeah, this is getting done, that's when fans are probably gonna be clutching pretty hard and maybe losing a little bit of the faith.
So if the Wild, let's say, missed the playoffs and finished 4th in division, but Kaprizov signs July 1, that's an overall win.
Absolutely. And I also think like, with the caveat of what you said there, if it's the 4th team in the division and they miss, and it's because like personally, I think the Pacific has some interesting teams, like that could be a scenario. I think that's way different than being the 6th team in the Central and like being clearly out by all metrics. So I don't know. You could ask 10 fans and you're going to get 12 different answers, but I genuinely believe that as long as it's not an embarrassing season with a healthy roster and we get a Kaprizov extension this summer, fans are happy.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a Wild fan, probably have to think of it in the long-term perspective, right? Because there hasn't been a lot of the short-term, like talk about a championship window, right? When they haven't gone past the first round, very rarely, at least by the second round once in their entire existence. So, but yeah, I think if you're going to believe in the current regime of this team, 97 is such a huge part of it that there's no other like plan B. Like, oh, Kirill doesn't resign, but then they use that 11, whatever, $12, $13 million that they would have spent on him to get who, There's no like, like you can trade him, right? But like I don't know what anytime you trade the best player in a deal, you lose the trade usually, right? Like
usually, but we've seen it be interesting. I mean, you're right. I don't think there's a possible way of winning the deal. I do think that if you come to grips and you make a move that summer, you can make a good enough move to appease the fans if it's clearly that Kirill wants out, right?
Yeah.
If that's the message that's being thrown around, I think fans will be like begging for you to trade him away, right? Now, what the return looks like will definitely impact how people react, but I don't know. I know that there are a lot of Wild fans that can be a little knee jerk and, go week to week with their opinions on the team. Maybe we just need to have a Kirill Kaprizov like flight risk meter every game. Just like, all right, Wild just won 7-2 tonight against the Blackhawks. Flight risk meter, pretty low. Next game, they get drubbed 4-0. All right, we're back up to like 50-50. Like, I don't know. That's kind of how I feel like fans go about it. I mean, especially now, after this game against the Blackhawks, maybe we have to be a little bit less worried about his top destination that he might seek out.
Oh boy, I knew the joke was coming sometime soon. And I guess, like I'm sure as our listeners probably noticed, my colleague in Chicago at the Athletic, Mark Lazarus, brought up on the Athletic Hockey Show, another podcast, a week or two ago, that from what he had heard from someone or some people at the draft, was about Chicago as a destination for Kaprizov in a couple of years now. And I love Mark Lazarus. He's a really good reporter. I think that what should be taken from that is not necessarily that Kirill has told anyone he wants to go to Chicago, will be there in 2 years or whatever. I think it's more so the line of the fact that Chicago is going to prepare themselves to make a run, like a lot of teams probably will, for Kirill Kaprizov at that time. I don't think there's a certainty or an element of like this is what's on Kirill's mind right now. I don't think that's on his mind right now. I don't know that for sure, but I don't get the gist that he's thinking, oh, Chicago, Windy City, let's go do this in 2 years. I think the focus right now is on the season and the Wild, and he likes it here, and he wants to see if they can put together a season that's worth remembering and worth building on. But I know my name got attached to a aggregated thing on Bleacher Report, and I was like, I was like at my new house, and I was like sanding and painting cabinets, and like Russo texted me with the screen grab of a Bleacher Report tweet saying Joe Smith said that Kirill Kaprizov likely destination Chicago. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, I've been in knee deep in home renovation projects. I wasn't even at the draft this year to hear this, like it just, so it's funny how that quickly got deleted and not corrected, but just all of a sudden it was Mark. So, but yeah, I think as it gets closer, and if there is a point in time where he doesn't sign, let's say at that point, then you'll have lots of different teams who will be lining up for him. But tonight looked really good. Power play was clicking on all cylinders. Him and Zuccarello were like old times. It was a big party at XL Energy Center, and they just hope that there's more of those nights this season.
Man, yeah, that power play goal definitely made the fan base feel things.